We're holding Lamed Gimel Lamed Aleph at the Mishnah Avidasev Avidas Aviv. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. In this chus of learning, we should have the Beis Mikdash. We're also learning in this chus of Sahava Golda Bas Baruch Yamin. And what was the name for Zevi? Or Zevi? What was today? Yesterday. Okay. And whoever needs to refresh name, starts like this. Avidasev Avidas Aviv. Someone has a lost item that he finds. So it's his lost item and someone else's, his father's lost item. Avidasev Kedemis. He takes care of his own first. We're going to see that we actually quote a pasuk to say that a person has to make sure that he doesn't become poor. And Avedas Rabbi, the same thing will apply if he finds a lost object that belongs to him or a lost object that belongs to his teacher. So then, Shalai Kaidim, his comes first. Okay, well, let's say that the two lost items don't belong to him. Avedas Rabbi, let's say one belongs to the father. One belongs to the teacher. So who comes first, Shalom? The teacher comes first. Your father brought you to Island Hazeh, and the teacher brought you to Island Hazeh. Very good. Okay. So Rabbi Kedemis, the teacher comes first. Why? Father brought him into this world. The teacher that taught him wisdom brings him to the world to come. What was the Bach over here? The Gra. If the father is the Talmud Chacham, Shalav Kedemis.
It doesn't have to be that the father teaches him, or
yeah, isn't that interesting? It doesn't say that. Yeah, but we're saying that it has to be that he learned from him. And we're talking. It's Avedas Rabbi, his teacher. But here, if the father is a Chacham, that's enough. I guess maybe the combination. But the only thing is the Svara isn't there. But the father didn't bring him to Elam Abba. The father just brought him to Elam Hazeh. So what? That the father's a Talmud Chacham. Okay. Shalav Kedemis, the father comes first. Let's say his father and his teacher are carrying a load. So you're going over to help. You go and help the teacher. You take his side of the table, mattress, whatever they're carrying together, and afterwards you go and help the father. Let's say the father and the teacher are in captivity. First you redeem the teacher, and then you redeem the father. But if the father is a Chacham, then the father comes first. Yeah, nowadays it doesn't apply. You know, it doesn't apply because the father pays for his tuition. So I think it says that if he pays for tuition, so he also brought him to Elam Abba. Yeah, and tuition is a fortune.
Do you happen to know if this was an ancient Mishnah or new to the times of Rabban Gamliel?
Why are you asking that? I don't know the answer, but what's making you ask that?
Because it sounds suspiciously like the rabbis buttressing their position of authority. At the time of the writing of the Mishnah, when they were concerned with that subject.
Right. Yeah, it's a very good question. Right. I think the only way I could find that out, because we don't have really earlier sources than the Mishnah. The way you could find that out is if you find things like this in the Dead Sea Scrolls. which is 200 years before the Mishnah.
Right.
That was the disproving all of the people that said, oh, it's all made from the Mishnah, the rabbis, and this, and then the Dead Sea Scrolls, all of that. So,
what was actually the Dead Sea Scrolls? Was it
all the big things were, like the
and-
Yeshaya and Tehillim, and they found some scrolls. They found some other stuff also, but they found some Mishnayos type things and arguments with the sages.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing from the actual 5 books.
That I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure. You see, this is archaeology is like cleaning for Pesach. Usually you don't find anything valuable. Usually you just, but every once in a while you find something, you move the fridge. Okay. How do we know that your possessions come first? That if it's your Aveda, you take that. If there's 2 Avedas there, you take your own before you take the other one. Your father's, even if it's your father's or your teacher. How do you know that yours comes first? So Amar Rav Yudah Merav. Rav Yudah says the name of Rav. It's the most common phrase in Shas. Amar, 5-word phrase. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Efes Kilei b'chayavyan. But there should not be amongst you poor. Shalcha kaidam shel kol adam, which means that you have to make sure that you don't become poor. Be careful. Take care of your possessions. Okay, that's the statement from Rav Yudah Merav. That's the source. Quotes a pasuk. But Rav Yudah Merav, however, Rav Yudah Merav then says that kolam mekayim ba'atzmai kach seif baladei kach, that you don't want to live like this actually, because anyone that's not goyim al chasadim, that doesn't give charity, and he always makes sure that he has what he needs, because the pasuk says you have to make sure that they don't become poor. You have to always protect everything. So in the end, a miser, then in the end, he's going to actually need other people's help. He's going to end up needing others. Yeah.
Very strong statement for something that you're going to point to.
Right. So Rashi says, his expression was, even though the pasuk doesn't require him to do that, but the person should go beyond the law. So that's Rashi. Not to say that exactly that mine comes first, and therefore, yeah, it's interesting. Okay. A lot of people have all their things invested. They have all their money invested. It's all planned out. If his father and his teacher are carrying a load, so it says that you have to help the teacher first, and then you help the father, unless the father is the chacham. Taner Rabbana was taught in the Brisa, Rabbi Shamru, and we said his teacher. What type of teacher are we talking about? It says Rabbi Shalamdu Chachma, his teacher that taught him Chachma, wisdom. Rashi says that that's referring to Gemara, which is the logic behind the Mishnah, to understand why the Mishnayos don't contradict each other, which we call Gemara. Rabbi Shlam the Mikra, but not the teacher that taught him Chumash or Mishnah or Mishnayos. Reb Meir, that's what Reb Meir says. So according to Reb Meir, the main teacher here would be the teacher of Gemara, of the answering the contradictions between Mishnayos. Rabbi Yehuda says Kol Shreif Chachmasim, and Rabbi Yehuda says it doesn't matter. Anyone that he taught, that he learned most of his wisdom, even if he never learned Gemara, if you just learned Mishnah or Chumash, that itself, or Tanakh, that itself is enough to be considered his teacher, if you learned the majority of his teachings from him. Rabbi Yossi says that we have 3 of the students of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi says it's considered his teacher, even if he just enlightened his eyes with the explanation of one Mishnah. Yeah, very good. Hillel's mentioning that the Mishnah says that David called Achitophel his teacher because he learned from him. He learned from him 2 things. Kal v'chomer, the Mishnah says that if you learn something from someone, that you should call him your teacher. So the Rebbe has a pshat in that even though it wasn't lishma, so therefore it doesn't have all the Torah, but because every part of Torah contains every other part of Torah. Even though this was like just like the dry, bare, basic piece of Torah, but it was only two pieces. You okay? Hey.
Hey,
I know a
why are you
doctor.
walking on a broken leg?
All right.
It's like they can't find the issue.
So that's the Rebbe's pshat that that Torah is infinite. So you learn something from yeah, etzem, right? So but I saw a pshat from Rabbi Hertz. You know Rabbi Hertz, the old Hertz Chumash. So he has a Hertz Siddur also. It's in the Hertz Siddur. So in there it says Shalaylamad me'achi teifel el shnei dvarim bilvad. He puts the two words together. Shalaylamad me'achi teifel el shenidbarim bilvad. He didn't learn from him; they were just talking. Kal v'chaymer halaymed mechaverei. Yeah. And it's a keep shot.
Ignorance could be bliss also. You know, you can read it bad.
Right.
There's a famous story. It says Baruch Hashem Kashani Matayus Levacha. So that's like Kanoshi Matayus Levacha. So that broke the decree.
It's funny. Okay. So yeah. So even if you learn one Mishnah, it's considered as teaching. This is Rabbi Yossi. Yossi is Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. Amar Rava says, "Gegain Rav Schera da Asbran Zuama Listrain." Do you have an English translation for this? It's something that it's one of the kalim in Masechtas Kalim that becomes tamei. The Zuama Listrain has to do with a something that takes some sort of spoon that removes from the pot some. What does it say in English? What do they call it? Is it
Fork spoon.
Oh, a fork? Oh, a fork spoon, that's what they call it?
On the food on the top, there's like the extra fat.
Yeah.
Pull it out.
They're calling it a fork spoon?
No, fork.
A fourth spoon?
F-O-R, large spoon used to
Oh, a froth spoon. A froth spoon. It takes the froth off the top of the soup or whatever. Very nice.
Even in those days, they weren't looking for fat.
Oh,
that's a capping soup. Right.
on one side and spoon on the
It looks
other.
like ice.
Because it's on the top. So okay, so Rav Schera, he taught him is what the Zoma Listrin is. For Shmuel, for example, Karamani Allahu Merabanan da Asbrei Achad Yer Lamas Hashechi Echad Yer Lamas Hashechi Echad Pesach Kevan. Shmuel heard the pshat in the Mishnah from one student on this Mishnah. This Mishnah is talking about the doors in the temple. What happened was in the ulam, which is the front chamber of the heichal which is in front of the Kodesh. It was like the front room of the Beis Hamikdash. So in order to get from there into the main room, which is the heichal, they had these big doors, but you didn't open those doors from the outside. You had to open those doors from the inside. How do you get to the inside if you're on the outside? So on the side there was a small door that it didn't have a handle here. It had a handle on a lock on the inside. So you'd put your hand through a little hole, put your arm down, and twist down on the bottom, and that would open the door. You were able to door from that. And then there was a regular door that would open kavan, that would open directly. So there were two doors. You went through a side little closet called the ta. You went through that ta, and then you went into the main room, and then you would open the big doors. In Talmud, himself the Talmud.
The Karamana he did Kriya.
Yeah, so when this fellow died, when this student died, he tore his clothing for him, as if it's his teacher. And he only told him shot in one Mishnah. Now, and that was enough. Okay, Amar Ula. Ula says, Talmidei Chacham Shevu Bavel Aimdim Zeh Mipnei Zeh, B'Koren Zel Zeh. Talmidei Chacham in Bavel, they stand for each other. What was that referring to? Like a student, he stands for his teacher, and they also tear kriya one for another. However, when it comes to a lost object, but nevertheless, they don't return the aveda to each other. If the father's aveda would be lost, and others, if there was a lost item, usually for your teacher, you have to return the teachers first. And because they give each other respect, like as if they're the teacher, then you should return each other, everyone else's aveda. You say no.
It says over here, in contrast, in Eretz Yisrael, there was preeminent Torah scholars and teachers. They served as the heads of Torah academies, but in Bavel, most scholars studied Torah with their peers. There was no conflict. You could have to bring down like a lot.
Let me see. Let me ask what Naftali Yonatan is telling me.
I didn't hear the question.
Yonatan is quoting from the Koran that in Bavel they didn't have real teachers, so they would just learn b'chavrusa. They would learn from each other. But in Eretz Yisrael, they had real teachers, and they didn't consider their friends to be their teachers. In Bavel, they didn't have teachers, so their friends were their teachers. And this is Ula saying this. Maybe, I'm not sure. That's interesting.
No, I understand this that
Ula came in the time of Abaya. What happened to Rabba? What happened to Rav Chisda? What happened to Rav and Shmuel? And what do you mean they didn't have?
no, I understand it differently. That in one place, Eretz Yisrael, we had like this class. The Rav was teaching the class. In the other place, all the Ravs, they would learn together. It was like the hierarchy.
Okay.
So the students learned Tzamen, alone without the Rav. And then when they had the Shilas, they came and asked the Rav tape. I mean, I don't know. That's what it sounded like.
It says in Eretz Yisrael, the study halls were in close proximity to the Sanhedrin. Most study halls took place in the form of lectures by the heads of the yeshiva. In Bavel, at first, the heads of the yeshiva did not have the great authority, and most of the students assembled only twice a year for the Karche Kala.
Yeah.
Months ago.
I think is he quoting? Does it end off with parentheses of who's saying that?
No,
Okay.
it's probably just bringing
Okay.
back.
Okay, that's all a suggestion.
On 39, it's kind of like that they used to like all learn together, so they would give each other like the respect. Like if it was their main rabbi, they would like get up and make each other comments.
Right. The question is this because the way it's being presented in that is that in Bavel they didn't have teachers, so they felt that their friends were their teachers. That's the way it's. All right. Kabai Minei Rav Chisda mi Rav Huna. Rav Chisda has a question from Rav Huna. You have to be careful over here. It says Talmud v'tzarech le Rabbi. Let's say there's a student, but the teacher needs him because he helps him with the pshat. Sometimes the student has something to offer the teacher. So what's going to be the halacha? Should he have to return the object of the teacher? But the student sometimes helps the teacher. So Amalei Chisda leit tzrichen alach. So Rav Huna says to Rav Chisda, he says Chisda, I don't need you. At tzrichesli, you need me. Like I don't need your help. Well, it's quite a comment. Yasser Rav Chisda Abayin Tanisim Mishum the Cholosh Daited Rav Huna. Rav Chisda fasted 40 fasts because he made Rav Huna feel bad. And Yasser Rav Huna Abayin Tanisim Mishum the Chashtil Rav Chisda. Rav Huna fasted 40 fasts because he suspected Rav Chisda of saying that Rav Huna needs him. He just asked him a halachic question. Okay. Itmar, I don't remember this in Tanya saying that, it says over there that this sage fasted this amount of time, this sage fasted this. I don't remember this one in here. Remember Rav Huna fasting for something else. But
What about when it tells you all the number of days to fast?
yeah, no, but in the list of it's talking about the sages that fasted for this. One fasted because his cow went with the bell, and his friends didn't allow that or something.
He did mention, I guess, where the 40 comes from was that he told them that you needed me even
That's 40 days, almost a week.
You needed me for 40 years.
even 40 you need 40
Uh-huh.
So then that's why they
Uh-huh.
did the
That's
40.
why they did 40, because it takes 40 years to catch up to the teacher's understanding. Was that?
I think that's if you're lucky.
Uh-huh.
If you're lucky, 40 years.
It's Mar. Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef Amar Rav Yochanan. Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef says in the name of Rav Yochanan, Halacha Rav Yehuda, that halacha is like Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda was the one that said that who's considered a teacher, anyone that you study from most of the wisdom. It doesn't matter if it's Gemara, it doesn't matter if it's Mishnah or Chumash or Tanakh. Rav Acha bar Rav Huna Amar Rav Sheshes Halacha Rav Yosi. In the name of Rav Sheshes, Rav Acha bar Rav Huna says that it's the halacha is like Rav Yosi that says even if it's just one halacha, it's already Mishnah Achas, right? Well, the Gemara has a question on the statement of Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. It says, "Miyam Rabbi Yochanan Hachi." Did Rabbi Yochanan really say this? From Rabbi Yochanan, but we have another very famous statement from Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha kastam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan says the halacha is like a stam Mishnah, an anonymous Mishnah, and we have an anonymous Mishnah. Tanan Rabbi Shalom de Chachma, his teacher that taught him wisdom. Let's see where that Mishnah is. Not sure. So, which is Lam de Chachma. Who's his teacher that taught him wisdom? What's wisdom? Gemara. That was whose opinion was that? Where it was? That was Reb Meir. So the Gemara answers, "My Chachma Reiv Chachmasei." It doesn't actually mean Gemara. It means most of his understanding, which would be no matter what it is, that would be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So we matched up Rabbi Yochanan with the Stam Mishnah, so it works out perfectly. Tanu Rabbanan. Starting the Brisa, Iskim b'Mikra, someone that's just involved in Mikra, which is Tanakh. Rashi says, Stam Mishnah is Reb Meir.
So how do we come up with?
Unless we know differently that it's
Then it's
that's
not a
not.
Stam Mishnah?
No, usually Stam Mishnah is Reb Meir, but it's not always like that.
Then it's not a Stam Mishnah, because we know who's there.
Yeah, exactly. But even though it doesn't say Divrei Reb Yehuda, yeah. After 40 years, right? Yeah, it takes 40 years. So it says someone that's involved in Tanakh, Mida Veina Mida. That's like, that's good, but it's not so good. It's okay. The Mishnah, Mida V'neitel Eschar. If you're involved in studying Mishnah, then you get the reward. That's good, and you get reward for that. Gemara, but in Gemara, there's nothing greater than that. Rashi over here says, in their days, they didn't have Gemara B'Ksav. They only wrote it down later. Okay. The Gemara says like this. Okay, take a look. It finishes off. But you should always run to study Mishnayos more than Gemara. Now, the Gemara, 1 second. We said Gemara that there's nothing greater than that. And then you said, but you should always run to study Mishnah. The Gemara says, Hagufa Kasha. This itself is self-contradictory. First, you start off saying that there's nothing greater than studying Gemara. And then you go back and you say that it's better to learn Mishnah more than Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan explains me, May Rebbe Nishnas Mishnah Zu. When it says that Gemara, there's nothing greater than Gemara, that was taught in the days of Rebbe. Now, I think the pshat is like this. It's a nice long Rashi here. What Rashi explains is that Rebbe gathered all the students and he would ask them anything that they heard from different teachers. And then they would clarify what was said, and Rebbe organized it into the Mishnayos. He set up Masechtas of Nezikin and Yavamas and Kudshim, and whenever Rashi adds in over here, whenever Rebbe saw something that should be the halacha, he put it as a Stam Mishnah. Okay, so when the Gemara says Ein lecha mida gedela mizu, that's the study Gemara that was talking about after, or I'm not sure how this works. Does it is in the days of Rebbe, I guess they had both statements. At one point, they had the statement that you should learn Gemara. Gemara is the best, and then they said that, but you should spend your time doing Mishnah. Probably after Rebbe organized the Mishnayos, that's when it said you should study Mishnah. That's probably the pshat. How does it say it in the commentary? Does it divide it up before Rebbe organized it, or what does it say over here? Let me take a look at this.
Because before the Mishnah was set, they wanted everybody to learn Mishnah because the Gemara, the Mishnah.
Oh, really? I thought maybe it was the opposite.
After the Mishnah was already set, they said, "Okay, jump to Gemara. The Mishnah is already written down. It's not going to be forgotten."
Let me see. It was during the era of Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe you're right. During the era of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, that the beginning of this brisa extolling the study of Talmud was taught. The result was everyone abandoned the study of Mishnah and pursued the study of Talmud. It was then that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi taught them and always pursue the study of Mishnah more than the study of Talmud, as without a firm basis in the fundamental halachas of Mishnayos, Talmudic discourse is futile. Let me just see. Oh, the way that they're putting it on the side and this Rabbeinu Chananel is that Rebbe was encouraging everyone to study Mishnah to be able to help him arrange the Mishnayos. Be able to help him arrange the Mishnayos.
What they learned.
But even though Gemara is the best, but Rebbe during his days, everyone was learning just Gemara. Everyone should be studying Mishnayos because Rebbe needed them to help him arrange the Mishnayos. Okay, my Darash. What did he? What were they saying? What was their logic for just studying Gemara? The Gemara says, "Is that pencil?"
Why don't you study the Gemara without Mishnah? The whole Gemara is discussing the understanding.
Yeah, but if the
Mishnah.
focus is on the Shaklavataria as opposed to the.
But I'm saying, so it's at the same time telling you.
Thank you. I'll tell you. There's quality and quantity. So
like Daf Yomi.
Yeah, you could learn 2 Mishnayos and start spending the rest of your life discussing like how they compare, how they don't, and then you can learn just 100 Mishnayos and never compare them. So people were just busy involved in this analyzing and all of that, but he wanted them to learn a lot to be able to organize. It says, and the more you learn.
Have you seen the little book by Reuven Margolius on this? A Mishnah V'Arikto.
Oh yeah.
Mishnah's editors. It's a fascinating book, and this is the subject.
Okay, I think I have it actually. Yesod HaMishnah V'Arichasa, I think it's called.
Right. That's it.
Yeah. If I don't have it, I saw it in the show. I have it in my head that I saw it. Okay, so why were they studying Gemara? Kedash Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai, like Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai taught. Ma'idek, what's the meaning of the verse? Hagid la'ami pisham, tell my nation their sins. L'beis Yaakov chatasam, and to the house of Jacob their sins. 2 types of sins. Pisham are pshaim are their intentional sins, and chatasam are their unintentional sins. Hagid la'ami pisham elu talmid chachamim. This is referring to who's the ami, who's my nation. This is referring to the sages. Sheshigagas naslam k'zedainis, that their unintentional sins are considered like intentional because they should have learned better, and they should have been more aware. In other words, they're held to a higher standard. Even they say, well, what do you mean? What do you want from me? Oh, it's a mistake. So, well, you shouldn't be making mistakes. Beis Yaakov chatasam, and for the Beis Yaakov, the house of Jacob, which is the rest of the nation, chatasam, their sins, which is unintentional sins, that even their intentional sins are considered like unintentional sins. Like, what do you want from them? They didn't do it on purpose. They didn't know. They didn't have the understanding. They didn't. You can't complain about that.
These are the ignoramuses. That's a pretty strong word. What's the
It doesn't say. It just says Beis Yaakov. Oh, it does say Ela Ami Aretz. These are the ignoramuses. You're right.
Yeah. Just contradict the whole thing with the offering, or the offering for the person that is not sure.
That's the. Yeah, Hill is asking an interesting question. It says that someone brings the Ashram Tali is supposed to be more expensive than the Chatas because he doesn't consider himself doing anything wrong. Maybe he didn't do anything wrong, so we have to show him that you have to have more repentance, to make sure that he really regrets it. So over here, though, we're making someone that doesn't know what he did wrong. We're making even if he knows that he did wrong, we're making it look like like it's much less. Yeah, but I think the answer is that we're dealing with what level of that every person has a different level of responsibility. You can't compare one person to another. One person learns more Torah, he's held to a higher standard. That's the
Everyone is judged based on their level.
Right, based on their own level. Right. Yeah, everyone knows the Frierdiker Rebbe. There was a time by the Baal Shem Tov's time that the rabbis, not the rabbis, the Torah scholars would put down the ignoramus. They would treat them with disrespect. Because, oh, you don't know Torah, you don't know this, you don't open your mouth in front of us or something. And the Baal Shem Tov came around and lifted up their spirits. Anyway, the Frierdiker Rebbe writes that what he said was that the Amei Haaretz, the people of the earth, and just like in the earth, there's treasures and there's all the minerals and the diamonds and the gold, and all of that is in the earth. You have to just take it out and polish it, but all of that is held deep inside. So that was the simple faith that the people had. Okay.
Also, each of those has responsibility
To learn. Yeah.
Because
true.
Not,
yeah. To see this, it's coming up. I know that's not, and this is what was started in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Avizar b'Talmud." You should be careful to learn to analyze the Mishnayos Talmud over here, and would mean Gemara. Shishigas Talmud elazada. The word Gemara in Talmud is the same thing. In Aramaic, Gamar means to learn, and in Hebrew, Talmud means to learn. It's the same word. Shishigas Talmud elazada, because if you neglect in analyzing the Mishnayos, you could come out with a intentional sin. We're considering it an intentional sin because of neglect of can mix up what the pshat really is. I'll say, well, I'll just look at the law. Why do I have to learn the Gemara? I can just look at the law, and then from the law you'll end up making decisions that are not accurate based on the reasoning. My students a lot of time tell me, how come I have to learn Gemara? Let's just learn the halacha. We'll get the bottom line. The reason is, well, based on this, the reason is a lot of reasons, but one of them is that you think you get the bottom line when you learn, but if you don't know the reason, so that's not really the bottom line. That's because maybe it's not applicable to the case that you think it's so obvious. So what do you mean? It's the same thing. It's not. Until you know the logic, you don't realize that that's not the same case. It looks like because you don't know what the background is.
Didn't the Alfasi take the same position as your students?
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
He did.
Naftali is telling me that the Rif, who cut out the Shaklavataria of the Gemara, in the back of the Gemara, there's another commentary here that looks like the Gemara. He took out all of the Shaklavataria, made it like condensed version, just the bottom line. He's saying that that's the position of my students. You don't need all the background. Yeah.
But he said, why? He said, why should you go to the Gemara, which is so difficult and prone to misunderstanding, if you have the writings of the great people who came before you to rely on. Something like that. Huh?
Like the Gainim, who was he referring to?
Well, he wrote one in the 11th century, so he
Right.
must have been, yeah, referring to the Gaon.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He just doesn't see my lips moving. I was going to say this is in direct juxtaposition to mitzvahs, because by Torah is by Gemara and Limud in the Torah, you really by
Right.
you read one, but by mitzvahs you do the mitzvah. You don't. It's
You just do
yes,
it.
it's important to know
Right.
it, but you
Right.
do mitzvahs primary.
Right.
Limud is primary.
Right. Right. Darash Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai, another teaching from Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai. This is Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnayos. This is Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai, the student of Rabbi Akiva. Maidik Siv, he's buried right outside Sfas, right up there on the mountain. Maidik Siv, what's the meaning of the pasuk? Shimud Dvar Hashem, listen to the word of God. Hacharedim al Dvar, those that are tremble by His word. Elu Talmid Chacham, this is referring to the sages. Imru Achechem, it says, say your brothers. Who your brothers? Elu Bali Mikra, those are the people that study Tanakh. Seinechem, that hate you. Your enemies. Elu Bali Mishnah, these are people that study Mishnayos. Minadechem, those that are disassociate themselves from you. Elu Amiarts, those are the ignoramus. Why are they getting such bad rap? It says, Rashi explains that those people that study Mishnah, they hate those that study Talmud, because the Bali Talmud talk about the Bali Mishnah that they're destroying the world, because it says, who are the people that destroy the world? Those people that paskin from the Mishnayos, like we said, because you don't know the reasons for it, it comes out wrong. And it doesn't explain why Bali Mikra. Oh, Bali Mikra is called your brothers. Oh, interesting.
There were, I
mean,
think some that only costing from the Talmud,
Right.
even go after
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's Amir. Shema Tamer Pasuk Sivram Ubatal Sikoya. Maybe you'll say that they lost their hope. Sivram is their hope, their thoughts, right? Ubatal Sikoyim, and they lost their chances. Tamaleim Menir B'Sim Chaschem, they'll see in your rejoicing. Shema Tamer Yisrael Yevayish. Maybe it's ending the pasuk over there. Maybe you'll say that the Jewish people will be embarrassed. They will rejoice in your rejoicing. The Jewish people will rejoice. That okay. That's the end of the chapter. Next chapter begins. Hamafkid Eitzel Chavera Behemai Kalim. Talking about Asher Mechinam now. You familiar with this, Shalom? You learning this year? If someone gives to Asher Mechinam, an unpaid watchman, an animal or utensils to watch, and they got stolen from the unpaid watchman, from the Asher Mechinam. So he's exempt. Asher Mechinam is exempt from payment because he's only liable if it was negligent. And so he wasn't negligent. It got stolen from him. But however, this is a tzaddik. He doesn't want to make an oath. So he says, you know what, I'm going to pay for it. Because the sages have said that a Shemachinim really could be exempt by taking an oath. His oath would be that he wasn't negligent, that he didn't use it, and it's also not in his domain.
So he doesn't have to pay.
He doesn't have to pay. He could have taken an oath and been exempt, but he wants to pay. What happens now is Nimtza Ganav, but they find the thief. The thief has to pay double. Tavach Machar, if it was the case of the animal and he slaughtered it or sold it, he has to pay 4 or 5 times. Yeah, pay 4 or 5 times the price. Who does he pay it to? Well, there was an original owner here, and then there was a guy that sort of purchased it because he paid for it. So it says, Lamisha Pikad Neslay, to the one that has the object now, which would mean the one that paid for it, which is the Shemachinam. Goes to the watchman 4 or 5 times. So that was an investment on his part. We're going to see how he acquired that in the Gemara. Let's say he swore he does not want to pay. He wants to be exempt, and he has a way out. He said, why should I pay if I don't have to? Nimtza Ganav, and then they find the thief. He has to pay double. That's all the same. He has to pay 4 or 5 times if he slaughtered it or sold it. Who does he pay it to? The Bala Pikadon, to the original owner. That was obvious. The original owner.
But does it work out that either they bring the animal or pay 4 or 5 times? Because
No, it could be it died.
okay, then what if the person just claimed, oh, it died?
Yeah.
And he really checked it.
But if we don't have a proof, you can't. Even if we don't know that he shechted it, if he tells us that he shechted, he's probably exempt also because he's made the beknas. Right? We would need witnesses that he shechted it. We caught him. We caught the thief, but we don't know if he sold it or this, that. So we won't be able to charge him. Right? Why do we need 2 examples of the Mishnah? Animals or utensils. Mishnah only spoke about tavachim, only spoke about the animal. Why do we need both cases? So it's tzrichi. It's necessary. If it would have said only about the animals, I could have said like the following: that the owner is very happy with the watchman because he gave him a hard job and he didn't even pay him. And the hard job is that you have to take the animal out to graze every day and bring it back in and this. Then when the animal gets lost and it wasn't even his fault, he's willing to pay. So the owner says, you know what, you can keep the income that comes from that. So but if you just gave him a watch to watch, that he just puts it in his drawer, he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to wind it, nothing.
The thief that has to pay double or 4 or 5 times as he paid the watchman.
He pays the watchman. Say so, but over here we would say that maybe he doesn't pay the watchman. Maybe the owner doesn't give him the kef. It doesn't say that you can keep the money because you had nothing to do anyway. How hard was the job? It was nothing. But if it would say the other way, if it would say just utensils like a watch or something. I could have said that maybe only by utensils he's going to give him the kefil because so what? It's just double. How much is it? From 100 it went to 200. But when it comes to an animal, if 100 goes to 500, maybe he never would have given that to him. So it's necessary to say both. That yes, he will give him a lot, and even if there's no work, he would give it to him as well. Just the fact that the person comes forward and pays is enough. Ram Barcham has a question. How does he give it to him? We're understanding now that that he's giving him the kefil already at the time when he's giving him the animal. It's going like this. He says that if here's the animal to watch, and if you end up paying for it because it gets lost, you can keep the kefil. He says, how does he give it to them back then? And like the kinyan on it, how does he make a kinyan back then? He doesn't know that it's coming. Even according to Rab Meir, that says that a person can acquire something, can give over something that hasn't come into the world. That's only fruits of a tree that are definitely going to come. But here, how does he know that it's going to be stolen? And even if it's going to be stolen, how do you know we're going to find the thief? How do you know that he's gonna that the shomer is going to pay? No, how do you know he's going to pay the kefel? Maybe he'll come before the witnesses show up, and he'll be exempt from paying kefel, because we know the rule, someone that admits to a penalty, is exempt from payment. So there's so many chances that he shouldn't end up ever having kefel. Amaravas, Rabbi gives us an answer. It's as if he told him, that when this animal is going to be stolen, and you're going to want to pay me, I'm giving you the cow. So in other words, he's not just giving him the kefel, he's giving him the cow from the beginning. That it's as if the cow is acquired to the shomer, so that afterwards he's going to end up getting the kefel. Whoever owns the cow gets the kefel. So he gives him the cow. If he's going to follow and pay right away. Maskefla Reb Zera has a question on this. It's a very technical question. Then why is it that the shearings of wool fleece, the sharings of all the fleece and the offspring don't go to the shomer. Allah Matanya, why was it taught in a brayso that he doesn't have to give, that he gets the animal, he gets the kefil, but he doesn't get the fleece and the offspring. That would go to the original owner. 1 second. If he acquired the animal from the time that it was given to him as a deposit, he should acquire the fleece and the offspring. So he gives us an interesting answer. He says, well, he told him that it's as if you're acquiring the animal from the beginning, with the exception of the fleece and the, okay, so we got out of that. My paska. So what made you determine that this is exactly the case? That this would be, and we have a Mishnah here. Mishnah is telling me what a person would typically do, that he would be willing to give him the kefel, the double payment, if he'd be willing to pay for it right away and not take him to court and all of that. So the Gemara, so here we're saying that he's willing to give him the kefil, but he's not willing to give him the fleece and the offspring. Why? What's the difference? Stama de milsa, the Gemara answers, probable. Shvacha de asami alma avinish de mikne. Income that comes from outside, a person is willing to give up. Shvacha de migufa, but income from itself, le avinish de mikne, a person would not give up. Because what it's always going to give, which is the fleece and the offspring, that he's not giving. It's just this. There is a possible income that's going to come from the outside that he's willing to gamble. He's willing to gamble on that, but not on what's.
It's like dividend stocks. The dividends you always get, the stock may go up, may go down.
Right, very good. Ikadamri, there's some say a little different. Rava, we have a different teretz. Rava says not that you acquired it from the time that it was deposited in your home. You acquired it 1 hour before it was stolen. Now, how does he acquire it 1 hour before it was stolen? Don't you have to make an acquisition? So we're talking about that it was in his property before it was stolen. His property acquires it from him. So it might be now, what's the difference between the two answers? Both of them, you don't, but the second answer gains for us is that you don't have to answer up that he said, with the exception of, you're acquiring everything with the exception of the fleece and the offspring. You don't have to say that because it was 1 hour before it was stolen. All the fleece and offspring already belonged to the original owner until then. He only acquires it at the last moment, right before it was stolen. So Ikabenayo, the difference between these two answers are Kushid or Abzera. First of all, you don't have to answer that he says Chutz mik gizesev ladaseh. He never acquired the fleece and the offspring. Inami, another answer is the Kaima Bagam, that it wasn't in his domain. According to the second answer, how does he acquire it if it's not in his domain? If it was in the meadow, so he was not able to acquire it. If he acquires it when it was first deposited by him, then he acquired it even if afterwards it got stolen from the meadow. But if he acquires it 1 hour before it was stolen, and 1 hour before it was stolen, it was in the meadow, then it was not able to acquire it. Okay, guess we'll leave it here.
Have you ever heard?
Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Have you ever heard the name Auman, A-U-M-A-N? I'll tell you why I'm asking. I have a friend who's a retired Jewish mathematics professor from Russia.
Uh-huh.
And he was telling me about a Jewish religious man, and I looked this up, it's true, who won the Nobel Prize in 1980 for game theory.
Oh, yeah.
And he told me that he solved the problem of the way the Talmud assesses payments when a debtor owes more, has multiple creditors, and he owes more than he has, how it's divided up. And
Oh, yeah. That's going to come up. Uh-huh.
We've learned that before, but does it come up again in this?
Yeah, it's going to come up. It was in, I'm sorry. We had it in We had it in Baba Kama.
Baba Kama.
Yeah.
It seems to me it was a longer ago that we did this. I should know where this is because I've learned it in Koshin Mishpat also. And he told me that mathematicians have always understood how it works, but they never understood why it worked until he fairly recently did some work. My friend is still, he's retired, but he's still active in the field of theoretical mathematics. He writes for journals and so forth. And he's very excited about it.
What's the name that you said? Amen?
Auman.
Oh, Amen. Amen. And this was the guy that won the Nobel Prize?
Yeah. And I think
it was another guy that won something in mathematics. Or maybe no, it was in economics. The guy with the nice white beard. What was his name?
The one who just died?
I don't know.
The professor will know about the one who just died, Daniel Kahneman.
That was Kahneman. Kahneman.
His thing was behavioral theory as applied to investments.
Oh. Is that his thing? Think Fast and Slow. Is that his book? Think Fast and Slow. That's a Kahneman.
It could be. That would sound like it.
Okay. Anyway. Very nice. Okay.
So it's in Baba Kama, you say, that we had it. I thought it was a different. Okay. Well, thank you.
Something else.
Huh?
Unless it's something else. There's a chapter called the Aksakors, four or five animals. And then because it's a shar tam, you have to divide up how it gets paid.
No, we learned it. There's another time we've learned the whole subject. It wasn't about in that context. I think it was maybe a debtor or something.
That could have been in Ksubas also.
Yeah. That's
paying his wife's Ksuba.
Okay.
Okay. Have a good day.
Good day.
Okay.